Alrighty, folks. Welcome to the Diverse Beatdown. This is the first episode on our channel, on our endeavor, and been in the making. I've been working on coming out with this for some time, and it's now. My name is Torrin Hasmore, and I'm gonna go as far as to say I'm a human, right? I don't know if y'all know of any other creatures or animals on the planet that make podcasts or, do social media outlets. But here we go. Just for anybody that was wondering, I'm a human being. I'm 39 years old, and that's how much time I've been on this planet. I want to just get straight into where we at right now, because that's why people are here. People are here for the Diverse Beatdown. What I want to do, or what I'm going to do, is assess the situation, look around the world, and make assessments, or, I guess some people are going to say judgments or opinions. There's going to be different things that come from it, but I'm going to go and say that I'm making assessments as to where we're at from a human perspective. Like everybody else, I got a life, I got other things going on, but I believe that, it's super necessary that everybody puts their assessment out there. It could go either way. I'll give you all this example because I think it's a great example. Think about like Kraft, or, any company that sells products to all races and classes of people. These groups of people, it's not in their interest to have an opinion. Part of my background is a chef, and I don't believe in, having a bias as to people's preference in what they want to eat. I personally don't care. If you got a celiac or, gluten allergy, as a chef, I'm not going to be like, you're a pussy, or, you're fucking, you got a weak immune system, or things of that nature. I'm more of a, do you have some money, and do you want some food? Because then we can, we're in business, we're cooking with grease. So I want to make it very clear that, I'm going to have my own opinions and my own thoughts, but the Diverse Beatdown brings the perspective of what is relevant to humans. So to give an example, again, I'm not making these videos for koalas. I'm making these assessments for humans, and it's by a human. And, I leave it to people who are extremely biased and have extremely strong opinions leaning in certain directions, do what they want with the information. So I've been thinking about this whole Diverse Beatdown, or having a outlet to talk about world information, or just the news, or, just like what's going on. I've been processing the beginning, trying to get started, but ultimately it's about injustice. I see injustices, or, you turn on the news, and I used to be a not watch the news and not pay attention to what's going on type of person. But then it got to the point where, I saw one time, there's a kid in Florida, and he got pulled over, and he's obviously a kid. He's not a adult. He's probably in his 20s. And the cops were asking him to do something, and the guy just punched him in his shit. I mean, the guy punched this kid in his fucking face while he's in the car with the seatbelt on, stronger than any person I've ever seen get punched. And that was like very impactful for me, because, you know, I have kids. You know, my kids are, you know, young adults, and my kids are driving or have licenses, and I just can't see somebody, you know, punching the shit out of my kid, and they didn't do anything wrong. I mean, even if they had a ticket, even if they were driving on a suspended license, even if they got pulled over and they smelled some of the devil's lettuce in the air, you know, I don't think it causes the action of mollywhopping and haymaking somebody. So, you know, there's so many different things that I could say are adversely affecting the potential human condition getting better. And if the human condition, you know, I'm saying human condition, I'm talking about the things that would affect all of us. I'll give you another example, which is one of my favorite examples when I talk to people to help people understand the human ecosystem and how it works. You know, it's like a boat, and we're all born with an invisible drill that if we so choose, it will become real. And if we choose to, you know, on our side of the boat, because we all got our personal areas, we're not all like fucking slaves coming to America in early historic times, stacked on top of each other, and whoever survives, survives. No. On this boat, we are able to have our own space with beds and, you know, probably TVs and shit. But staying on point, having the drill on your side of the area, you may decide in your room that you want to drill some holes. Now, if you were not on a boat and there wasn't, you know, we weren't surrounded by millions of gallons of water in the boat, then it would not matter. But if on a boat and you're on the opposite side of the boat of me, and you drill holes into the boat, the water comes in, and that water will sink all of us. So I think that's a very good analogy to describe, you know, the human condition, and how if, I don't know, you pollute, you know, a water system in a specific area, it'll affect the people that are in that area, but also it'll affect everybody. Or, I don't know, destroying all the corn. You know, it's like, just because one person doesn't like corn, and we just destroy and burn all the damn corn, at some point, that action is going to have adverse effects on the whole economy. I heard somebody say one time it's the same thing with bees, or like freaking mosquitoes. Like, they may suck really bad at, you know, at certain things, but they're actually essential to the overall economy, or ecosystem, as I would say. So moving on, you know, think about America, you think about, you know, history, you think about just everything that has happened from, you know, the beginning of what we could say is history that we can record. I'm a firm believer that, you know, we are only accessing the available information that, you know, humans have been able to either maintain or reserve. You know, there's still information and stuff out there that we haven't even touched, which is older and maybe has more, you know, maybe has more information. Maybe there's like better computers or diagrams for, you know, better things inside these hidden tombs that we don't know about. But I want to believe that, you know, based on the history that we do have available and do have access, Anybody that's interested in understanding the human condition, you kind of got to understand where we came from as a people. You know, we've been through a lot of struggles, and we've been through a lot of challenges, and there should be plenty of things for us to learn. You know, they have plenty of opportunities for us to see that if power is used improperly, bad things happen. If people in power are stupid, bad things happen. If we as a country, we're American, as an American citizen, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of non-Americans, but you know, if you're an American citizen, I think that you would have more skin in the game than a non-American citizen. So if you're an American and there's any kind of understanding of the Constitution, which was a document that was created by our founders to, you know, have like a general set of laws and I guess you could say commandments, you know, like, hey man, this is who we are, man. Like when a restaurant has a freaking, this is our mission statement. But it goes a little bit further than that for this country, because it has implications where, you know, there might have been things that were wrong about it, but there's some things that are right about it, you know, like liberties and freedoms, you know, right to bear arms, aka protect yourself from somebody trying to kill you. You know, you can make some money, you know, like the basic way of living that, you know, if you take away all the politics, you take away all the BS, you take away all the capitalism and the, you know, biases, you take out the media, you know, bias, you know, like if you take away all the things that are trying to get you to buy something and lead you in a direction where they want something from you. You know, if you look at it, the Constitution is really the only thing that we have that we didn't, you know, that we paid for, that, you know, we still have it, but it can be, I guess, almost repossessed from you. And that's one of the key factors in wanting to get into making podcasts or talking out to human beings or put myself out there and speak. One of the reasons, you know, I like people. I think I said I'm a chef. I think I mentioned that. So I love to be of service of my community and people in general. And I don't really have these biased opinions about things. Like, there's certain things that I'll be like, you know, this is bullshit. But if I'm saying it's bullshit, it's from a non-Republican, non-Democrat, non-fucking into politics perspective. I'm from like the person who, you know, knows who's president, but, you know, I don't give a shit because, you know, I'm a businessman, you know, I'm a father, family member, you know, that's not my stick. I'm not into that. You know, just like some guys or some gals are really into sports. You know, hey, they really into it. Like they fucking put the jersey on. They're fucking, you know, sitting there ready to go. They fucking, you know, they take it seriously when that team loses. I mean, I think it's a very interesting thing, or it's an interesting hobby to be in. So, back on topic, you know, the freedom that we're experiencing and that we're actually live going through and seeing the repossession of right now today, that all came with a price, you know, and I mean, who knows what that is? Like, we talk about the national debt, we talk about these different things, but the price for freedom that we are calling it, you know, there's different levels of freedom, and, you know, we're going to get into a whole lot of different things, but for this specific episode, which is the first one, by the way, for this specific episode, I just want to focus on human freedoms and liberties being taken away. And if that happens, the consequences that's going to affect all of us, whether or not you're into it or not. You may not care who gets killed. You may not care who gets bombed. You may not care who it gets stolen from who, or who kidnaps who. There may be tons of things that you be like, hey man, if they were fucking pulling themselves up by their bootstraps, maybe they wouldn't have got shot. I mean, there's going to be all kind of different things people are going to say as to why they personally didn't contribute to things not fucking sucking, right? So, I think back in the day they used to say, if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. One of my favorite sayings, because it's so true. The same people that, aren't doing anything are the ones that get mad when something happens from there not being nothing done. And I think that's just hypocritical and moronic. So, as we see, I don't know if anybody's been aware, and we don't need to go back so far because it's already 2026. I think today is January 12th, 2026. And as of right now, if you didn't know, there's some fucking crazy shit going on. I mean, there's so much stuff going on that, I'm so busy trying to make sure that, shit don't happen to me, and also nothing happens to my family or my loved ones, and also, going further to make sure nothing happens to people I don't know, whether they're Democrat, Republican, male, female, gay, not gay, trans. This is for anybody that came out of vagina when they were born. And I think that, I don't know, unless people are born differently and I didn't know, and I had, maybe one of those the ancient tombs that we haven't discovered yet since the beginning of time, has a different way people are born. I'd like to think that all of us, with ears that are listening, came out of the vagina. And I think from that perspective, it matters to us. So if you haven't been seeing what's going on here lately, we just stick with America. We are in some seriously, ridiculously uncharted, unknown, very bad, seemingly going times. I mean, it's pretty obvious that things are bad. People are getting murdered for wanting to drive away from, armed, masked men in the middle of the street in the daytime. If an American citizen gets murdered, a woman, let's stay on track. If a woman, because, we all came out of the vagina. Women, for all those who didn't know, this is also an informative podcast. We teach you things you didn't know. Women have vaginas. Okay? So, I think we should stick on this point because a woman in America, unarmed, was in her car and she was murdered for not wanting to get out of the car when armed men with masks and guns and military equipment, like they're overseas in fucking desert sands. They're standing there in American streets, and a woman who has the vagina that we all came out of, the one that we were talking about, she has that, the vagina I like to look at has potentiality. It's potentiality. So the only species on Earth that can have humans is the human woman. So I'm stressing the importance of this concept, okay? For everybody that's like, why does he keep saying it? So a woman was unarmed in her car and was being cursed at and told to get the F out of the car. These guys got guns, and she obviously didn't want to do that. I mean, for obvious reasons. I mean, it's not a woman thing that nobody wouldn't want to get out of the car. It's a human thing to not want to get out of the car to arm men, but also it just doesn't make any sense. So you're sitting and you try to pull away, and as you're pulling away, before you even get, 5 feet away from where you're trying to, go down the road to drive away from, potentially getting hurt and beat up. They just had a woman that was pregnant. You saw if they would do something like that to a pregnant woman, and this happened before what happened to Renee Good happened. If that would happen to a pregnant woman getting dragged down the street, I mean, I don't know. The lady didn't. I don't think Renee Good was pregnant. And of course, there's so much things that you could put in there as far as things that Renee Good may have known about, which caused her to not want to listen to the armed, masked guys cursing at her to get out of her vehicle. There's multiple reasons. And even with all those reasons that any human could bring up to say whatever about it, there's no justifiable reason for an American human woman or a human woman to get shot in the head while being unharmed, trying to drive away from her perceived threats. Right? So, obviously, if I believe in the Constitution, which is how we're able to even have an outlet or have the ability to even, have freedom to go pick a job or go to work. And I don't know, as a black person, I'm pretty sure the Constitution got a lot to do with why we're not slaves. I'm pretty sure if it was written in the Constitution that black people shall always be slaves, no matter what, even, like if there was some type of rhetoric in there that, made it impossible for me to not be a slave, then I probably would not be a slave because, it's part of the documents or something. I don't know. But I've always been to the understanding that, slavery ended and it's a part of the Constitution. And even though there were things that they did, even though it was put into the Constitution, black people had to build up a whole infrastructure, to come out of the mindset of, being a damn slave all the time. So, obviously, if I believe in the Constitution, I believe in law. Because law would be, how you would enforce the non-constitutional activity. So, somebody wanted to keep slaves, and the person was like, man, I'm keeping these slaves, man. And they're like, man, you can't do that, Bubba. It's breaking the law. He's like, no, I'm keeping these slaves, man. Then, the law would come down on top of you and make you stop having those slaves, I like the law that makes sense. I like the law that's like, man, don't fucking dump that toxic waste into the ocean, bro. That's a good law. I like obviously I can dig and get down with the don't murder law. That's a good one. All the laws that are preserving, freedom, fairness, community, education, building a strong economy, healthcare, freedom of religion and speech. You know, there's so many things that if you don't really know, we're only able to do it because of the Constitution. And, you know, or like protesting, that's one of them. You know, being able to protest without somebody shooting you in the head. I mean, if it wasn't for it being in the Constitution, it's when people say, I have my rights. I have my rights. You've seen these people where they get all like, you know, I got my rights. Like, you know, you probably even talk to those people. So, you know, those people that, you know, scream, I have my rights, you know, they're talking about the ones that they are, you know, given by the Constitution. So, with that being said, it's looking like it's just going away. I mean, it's looking like, you know, the Constitution is like a suggestion. You know, it's more like a open-ended Microsoft Word or Excel spreadsheet that just never gets locked. You know, anybody can go in there and, you know, make adjustments and changes, you know, in this document, or, you know, the structure of how the America works, and, you know, unilaterally, you know, make the decision that, hey, this is stupid. I don't want to follow this rule. You know, I don't want to do the thing where I like don't kill people. I want to kill people. You know, and then you get that person in a situation where, you know, they're going to do it and go beyond the Constitution. This is why I believe in law, so that people who think that they can do things that are unconstitutional, that there should be some type of law to enforce the thing. Like, you know, I believe in police, you know, or I believe in government-sponsored programs, you know, like the cops, that, you know, whose job is to protect and serve the community. You know, protect and serve us. You know, cops don't work for fucking giraffes. You know, they're not here for that. They're here for if something happens to me, like, or the firemen. You know, they're not just fucking making lakes, you know, building up, digging holes and like, man, this is a place where I want a lake, bro. They're here for, you know, if my fucking house is burning down, they come up with the hoses and they put that shit out. You know, I want it to work. I want it to protect and serve us as far as these things, these infrastructural norms like hospitals or schools. You know, these are all things that I think are a part of our constitutional right and heritage as Americans to be able to participate in these activities, you know, for whatever reason. Sorry, grabbing something to drink. So we have, just because we're here, we have stake in the game, you know, because I heard a guy say the other day that his opinion was that, you know, black people are better off here in America because even though they, you know, even the ones that came here as slaves, they're better off here because they were slaves, because, you know, they wouldn't have been able to be in this economic or, you know, geographical or, you know, the economic place that we were at as a people, black people. It wouldn't be the same for us, you know, if it wasn't for slavery. And, you know, that's just a little side note, you know, and just so you know, that's a good example that's his opinion. You know, I don't give a shit what he says. You know, I don't give a shit what anybody says. Use the Kurt Cobain, you know, Nirvana song reference. I don't give a shit unless it's about me. I mean, I don't care what anybody thinks unless it's about me. That's what he says in one of his songs. I say that from an American human perspective. And when I say American, it's where I live. You know, they fucking drop bombs here. I'm going to take it more personal because it's where I'm at. All that gas. I mean, you saw what happened to Hiroshima. I mean, nuclear bomb drops fucking suck. And for a very long time. It doesn't just, the bomb don't drop and then it like fucking blows away like fucking fireworks. It fucking lingers around for a whole bunch of years, many, many years. So, Constitution, laws, the general government, doing their jobs, passing the laws, the government that is there, the government, the Senate and the House, Congress, these elected officials. These are all people who are in and a part of these groups. The Democrats are human, and the Republicans are human. And I know that there's other political parties, but nobody ever knows about them because I guess they just can't come up with a, convincing argument that's relevant enough to arouse a lot of people, I guess. And, there's supposed to be laws that, that should be followed, but the people that are directly in closest access to making the changes, right? I'm talking about like governors, mayors, senators, congressmen. I'm speaking about Democrats or Republicans. And for the record, if any Democrats or Republicans or senators or anybody in the House or anybody working for the government is listening right now, I'm going to give you guys a tip, and this is a free tip. I do consulting for restaurant management and aspiring chefs, on how to be successful. So I'm gonna give a free tip. I usually don't do this, but for you guys that have the ability, and I'll speak just to the Democrats and Republicans. Let's just make it simple. To the Democrats and the Republicans, everywhere, right now is a huge opportunity for you all to, get the support and votes you want, right? Whoever can do what's right and make the current administration, anybody that can convince the current administration that what they're doing and what they have done is unconstitutional. Anybody that can get in that space and do that, anybody that could, whip the votes to get anybody to get anybody at the Department of Justice or just anybody in the current administration, the Trump administration. Any one of you guys on the Democrat side or the Republican side that can convince or make it known that the actions that they're taking is unconstitutional. And, the reason why I'm asking me, because like I said, it's inhumane. And if whoever can get humans to believe and make it so that the Trump administration has to have the consequences of the law, and bring these guys up with charges for the laws that they have broken and the laws that they're contributing to be broken, inciting others to commit these law-breaking activities. Whoever can get the unconstitutional activities to stop will have all the fucking votes. And, to my knowledge, I'm not a fucking politician, but to my knowledge, there are times when if you get the most votes and you're popular, you win. And, and that's just a little free tip. And I'll make it even more simple. If you do the right thing by your fellow man or humans, or if you're doing a good thing because you know it needs to be done and there's no agenda, most people like that shit, man. Most people like, hell yeah, man, that was cool, man. I appreciate that, And, I think I'm speaking also to a lot of people. There's going to be plenty of people that come across this, whenever you come across it. But there's going to be those folks which are somewhat like myself, because I'm almost 40 now, where you kind of feel like, hey, maybe I need to get more involved in my community, right? Maybe it's necessary I start doing some stuff, And I think it's necessary that everybody start doing some stuff. If you're not involved in your community, I don't care how old you are, I don't know. I don't know how human you are, if you're not involved in your community, which is built for and by humans. And when I think about getting involved in the community, I want to be like, okay, how can I help? How can I contribute to what's going on? And you're almost at the place where you kind of got to choose a side, And, I've even talked about this with friends, like, okay, if I did have to get into politics, or if I did want to get, more involved in my community from a, political aspect, then I would be like, I would have to only choose the parties that potentially can get into political positions, like a Democrat or Republican. And like I said, there's those other parties that, we know about and people know about, but I'm not saying their names because I don't see them ever actually contributing to change one way or the other. So I'm not going to mention them. So, I'll be like, okay, will I be a Democrat or will I be a Republican? And it's like, after all that's happened, because, silence is enabling and compliance. If you see something bad happen and you don't say nothing, or if you see something bad happen, you be like, well, if you like pause, if you see, and let's go back to the example, if you see a woman being harassed by armed men in mask with fucking Desert Storm door patrol gear on, and you see a woman in her car turning her steering wheel away from them, not complying, because all in the reason I got to make sure it's clear, she is turning away because in all the videos you can see there was a command, not from a cop, not from a law enforcement officer, a paid individual, a paid mercenary to do a job, because let's call it what it is. A mercenary is somebody who is paid to do a job. And most mercenaries, if you think about it, from movies, and most mercenaries are doing bad shit. You ever pay a mercenary to fucking plant a garden for you? Got an ad in the paper, I'm looking for some mercs to get this job done. And they show up and you're like, yeah, I just need these fucking plants planted. Mercenaries in general, or based on, where we're going with this, a mercenary is somebody who is paid to do a job that is outside the scope of the law, or would be considered outside the scope of the law, because there might be times where, like if you're a small country, you might hire some mercenaries, to protect, the community from freaking bad people or something. Then it's like, all right, well, he hired those mercs to, fucking save somebody or some shit. That's fucking cool, right? That whoever does that, they probably are pro-human. But anybody who is trying to make it seem that her not complying and trying to drive away from these mercenaries with guns, with bad track records, you know, if the murder of Renee Good is justifiable because she was trying to drive away and remove herself from a situation where these armed mercenaries who had already cursed at her, who had already done all kind of bad things in just her community, which I'm sure because she was human, she disagreed with those things too because they were happening to humans. And, you know, I believe that, you know, because I've seen it on both sides. I mean, obviously I've seen it on the Republican side. They're full blown like, yeah, she was fucking, you know, she had some fucking child porn. She was, you know, she had a plastic fucking, you know, one of those guns that are made in those fucking machines. You know, it's those machines that you can buy. Those 3D printing machines, you know, she had a gun from there. And, you know, she just dropped off 2 Somalis and 1 pro-Hamas guy. Now, mind you, all that stuff I just said is just me making up shit. But that's exactly like what the Republicans went on TV and did. And were like, you know, and without even an investigation, you know, they were labeling her a terrorist. And the administration, the Trump administration, first thing they decided to do was they sanctified it. You know, it was like, yeah, man, hey, fuck around and find out. You got Pete Hegseth saying it. I mean, he's like, hey, man, I mean, basically, she fucked around and found out. You know, I mean, that's pretty much what he said. He said a bunch of stuff. So, you know, I don't want to be a Republican, right? That's what I'm saying. I don't want to be a Republican because they're openly like, you know, she deserved it, you know, and no laws were broken, and move on and shut the fuck up. You know, you can say that with the Epstein files. You can just say that in general. You know, I can bring up multiple people in the administration that are Republican. That are pro-non-human and pro-non-upholding of the Constitution with laws. So then you gotta throw in the Democrats because they're in the mix too. And you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff I could say, but most of what I have to say about the Democrats is they're not doing nothing. So obviously, I don't want to be a fucking cuck that stand there, you know, watching, you know, the person I care about or, you know, the person I love, which is America. You know, a cook for anybody, or cuckold, you know, is something for anybody that doesn't know, is a weak human. You know, most of the time they say a cook is a man, and they say, you know, he's the guy that, you know, while his wife is being had sex with, somebody's actively having sex with his wife or fucking him or fucking him over, he's just standing there watching it, you know? And I don't want to fucking be a part of that neither, you know? As a human that is pro-human, I only want to be a part of, you know, a group that's not full of shit. I grew up in a time where, you know, I know y'all have heard this, guilty by association. You know, I don't want to be guilty because I'm associating with you fuckers. And fuckers is anybody who is guilty. I mean, guilty of being non-human or guilty of breaking laws and being inhumane. I don't want to be a part of that kind of association. Or I don't want to associate myself with anybody who isn't pro-Constitution and pro-supporting the laws. You know, I was thinking about it and I was just like, what party would you be? What group would you be a part of, you know? How would you be able to contribute to the growth and the development and the, wanting or to be, what party is it that wants to uphold the Constitution and the laws? And ultimately, it's my favorite word, y'all know it's coming, humans. So, humans are the ones that are adversely affected by the government not properly governing different aspects, the different parts of it. And it's bad government, bad business tactics. There's so many different ways you can say it. So I'm going to just go with, providing the information to my fellow humans, and for all the humans that I've never met, never come in contact with, I'm on your side. I want you to be and have the ability to be as human as you want to be. And, if you support the Constitution and you support laws, you support, any of the freedoms and justices that you've been experiencing up until now, and you want to be able to contribute and be a part of, the group or the party that isn't a fucking cuck, that is, and a cuck would be, okay, if I know that I'm in a group, let's just say I didn't know I was in the KKK. I just found out, because of me not being on social media, or, I live a very closed and sheltered life, but for whatever reason, if I ended up in the KKK and I found out that I was a part of this racist hate group, that wanted to murder a certain kind of human for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, but I was a part of this hate group that wanted to openly murder another group of human, and openly is going out of my way to try to make life difficult for a certain group of people. If I woke up and I found out that I was a part of this group of people, then as a human and as a person who is, supportive of the Constitution and a person who's supportive of the laws to enforce the Constitution, which give us the right to enjoy the life that we currently have today, if I found out that I was in the associated with a group of people who are unconstitutional, then I would remove myself, or at the very least, I would speak out on the atrocities or the crimes being committed to want justice to be served to the people that are basically being non-human. That's the Republican Party. They're the ones that are openly doing bad things and supporting it, so I don't want to do it. But then there's people in the Republican Party that are, they don't support it, but they're not saying nothing about it in support of, the non-human murder unjustifiably, or the unconstitutional activities happening, and not saying nothing. You're just as fucked. You're just as fucked as a cook. And let's go to the Democratic side, because they're making arguments that don't do anything, or they're not being angry enough, or they're just not saying anything. If I'd known now let's go just say as an American, a non, party affiliated member of any party. I'm not affiliated with any political party other than the Human Party. Now, looking at both of you guys, it's a bunch of jokes. I can't look at either one of you all as something that I want to be supportive of, meaning I don't want to be a Democrat and make a difference because they're not doing shit. Definitely want to be a Republican because they're like, yeah, shoot that white person in the street. In the video, after he murdered her, also, let me say, the ICE agent, after he murdered her, called her a fucking bitch. He obviously wasn't hit because he would have not been able to walk down to her car, look in the car, take the screenshot like, yeah, I did it, and then post it to his social medias, and then walk away unscathed. People who get hit by cars and stuff like that usually don't walk away if they were rammed by a car, which is what one of the Trump, what's it called, the department, or whatever, the government or the Trump administration's members said that, he was rammed by the car. And also, I don't know if people know, when you commit a crime like murder, you don't leave the crime scene. They have the guy on video, the murderer, the ICE agent, mercenary, leaving the scene of the crime after he murdered a woman. And, that's definitely not, that's obviously breaking the law. So let's move on. So I don't feel, and I wouldn't even go into feelings because this is way more than that. It is ridiculous to expect, and I'm speaking to all you politicians, obviously the Democrat Republicans, because they're, supposedly, quote unquote, running things as far as, making sure people, don't break the law and follow Constitution. Neither one, you guys don't understand that if you lose everybody, it's going to be civil war. It's going to be fucking knockout, drag out, fucking every man or humans against people who are not being human. Y'all understand that? It's not about Democrat or Republican. It's about the Constitution, which is for people. So the Constitution is for humans, and it doesn't say I'm not saying the Constitution is for Democrats. I'm not saying the Constitution is for Republicans. The Constitution is the framework for humans to be able to have the level of freedom and liberties that we all as humans have access today. So to you Democrats, to you Republicans, if you think that you all can sit back and not do anything to support the Constitution, support the enforcement of the laws on individuals, no matter who they are, that are actively and openly violating the Constitution with murder, or any other unjust, or anything that's unconstitutional or law breaking. Anybody that's a non-law abiding citizen should be prosecuted by the law. I believe in that. If you're fucking breaking the law, I don't want that in my town, man. I don't want you fucking breaking the law over here, because obviously that's non-American, fucking breaking the law. I mean, as far as, like robbing moms and, sticking people up at gunpoint, I don't know, selling fentanyl to teens, shit that's adversely affecting human beings and bad, nobody's going to be supportive of that. And if you're not doing the things that are making the people pay for breaking the law or violating human rights and being unconstitutional, you're setting yourself up to never be able to redeem yourself in the eyes of, your fellow humans, because you had a job to do, you didn't do it, and you're not protecting the ability to, save or preserve the Constitution. Don't be surprised when it's gone. I'm saying this to all the folks now. All the people that have the opportunity to, do something about making the Constitution mean something, and making sure that people that are doing things to undermine and make it not mean anything, all those people that are fucking cucks, silent for, destroying the Constitution and all those things, you got bad things coming to you. I believe in karma. I know that a lot of people won't believe in karma, but that's cool. Whether you believe it works for me or not, whether you believe it works for me or not is irrelevant, because I'm telling you, karma's real for me and real to me, and it works. When you do fucked up, horrible things, bad things happen to you. it don't have nothing to do with your job, or if you got enough money to, survive a recession. I've been told, since I was a kid that God don't like ugly. I believe that. I don't think he likes that. I've never met God personally. But from what I hear and what I've read, he don't like you that. He wants you to do right by humans. And, when you do things that are horrible and atrocious and un-American and just bad in general, the only reward, or the only thing that you're going to get from it, is bad. Any human that thinks that they can do bad and, not expect bad, or at the very least, be, somewhat fucking taken aback or surprised, if or when bad stuff happens to them, that's just to show you how stupid people can be. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I think this was a great first episode. Please like and subscribe my podcast. I'm your host, Torrin Hasmore. This has been the first episode of Diverse Beatdown, where we come to you and we bring you information about humans. Because I think that humans want to know what matters to them. So if I don't know, if there was a meteor coming, you're going to find out about that here, because that's going to affect us. If we may be going to war with another country, and when I say we, I mean humans in America. If we're going to war with another country, I think we should know that. And, just anything else I can bring to you all from a human party perspective. Because if you really think about it, as far as, these Democrat or Republican parties, if we made our own party and we call ourselves the Human Party, and we could probably even have we can all decide, because there's so many of us, what would be our symbol. How they have the fucking stupid donkey, and it's like elephant, I think? I don't know. You see how much I don't know about these fucking guys that I mentioned that are actively not making things better and allowing laws not being to enforce. I don't know so much about them that I don't know what their party image is. But for our party image, we could decide together. And obviously us as the strongest, most vote having party in all of the world, we literally could, have the coolest symbol. I mean, maybe as the Human Party, we might be able to make things better everywhere. I don't know. I think the Human Party is going to be a big thing. So anything associated with potentially affecting the Human Party, that's what I want to bring to you. That's the information I want to talk about. Share this with your friends. I'm going to be making podcasts randomly. But my goal, this was my first one. It's Monday. What's today? Let me check again. It's January 12th on a Monday. So my goal is to make 2 podcasts a week. So I'm going to make another podcast this week. And, after that next episode, I would like to talk about things that you all want to talk about. Maybe you guys got some guys and gals, and, maybe there's a fucking smart monkey listening that's just his fucking stick. He likes listening to fucking, not only the first podcast of, unbiased human supporting news. I don't know, maybe. So, but at some point in time, I would like to hear from you all so that we can talk about, whatever you want to talk about, because we're going to talk about what affects us. And, you know, the bigger we build our human political party, the more power we have, and there's power in numbers. Thank you. And until next time, don't be bugged out.